Because we were taught that faith looks like certainty, right? Like if you really trust God, then you won't experience any doubt. You're not going to feel doubt. You're not going to be hesitant, right? Or if I'm doing the right thing, then I'm going to feel peace immediately about it. Like God's letting me know this is the right path, Lorianne. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to feel like this moment of peace, right? Or if this is God's plan, it will all make sense, right? And that's kind of how we test in our little brains, like what faith is supposed to look like. But no, that's not what it's supposed to be like. And that's not what it feels like most of the time, because most of the time it doesn't feel clear at all. I know from lots of experience, it does not feel clear. It actually, some of the greatest things I've done in my life have always been born out of that feeling of confusion and hesitancy and doubt, but moving forward anyway. If you're tired of living in survival mode and questioning your worth and faith after divorce and want simple steps to heal, drop that shame and guilt, and rebuild your confidence, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Lorianne, certified Christian life coach and midlife divorce mom of 2. I learned the secret of how to heal after divorce and rebuild my life through faith-based strategies that changed everything. And if you're ready to remember who you truly are, rediscover your purpose in midlife, love well again, and care for your body and soul, welcome to the club. You're in the right room. Hey girl, and welcome back to the Midlife Comeback Club Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here every single week. I drop new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays, so you can be sure to check back here and you will find something new for you every week. Okay, can we just clear something up first, right from the beginning? Faith is not having all of the answers. It's not like feeling 100% sure all the time or waking up every day like, God's got this, I'm just going to have faith. It usually doesn't feel like that, even though that might be the pretty picture that we want it to look like, right? Like that's what we're striving for. But for most of us on a daily basis, it can be a little bit murky. Because if that's what faith was, most of us would just be disqualified immediately, right? Because faith looks a lot more like, I have no idea, God, what I'm doing. I feel like that most days, a little bit less in recent years, but for a large majority of my life, that is definitely what I felt like. So it's saying like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but God, I am going to take the next step anyway. So if you've ever felt unsure or completely overwhelmed with your life, like, what do I do next, God? Or like you're waiting for clarity to magically rain upon you before you move forward, this episode is definitely for you. And if you want support on a different level, walking out this in real life, that's exactly what we do inside the Midlife Comeback Club. So I definitely want you to check out the link in the show notes because you will be surrounded by a group of amazing women who are walking a similar path as you in midlife after divorce. And you will get weekly group live Q&A calls with me every single week where you can bring what's on your heart to our calls and we walk you through it. Oh, and for free, you get my entire transformational 90-day program that's inside the annual group coaching mentorship. So I definitely want you to check that out. It's been so valuable for so many women, and I've seen incredible transformations on these women that I've coached. And, that's my passion, is to help you get to where you want to be. So, all right, well, let's get into it. Today, here's where a lot of us get this wrong, because we were taught that faith looks like certainty, right? Like if you really trust God, then you won't experience any doubt. You're not going to feel doubt. You're not going to be hesitant, right? Or if I'm doing the right thing, then I'm going to feel peace immediately about it. Like God's letting me know this is the right path, Lorianne. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm going to feel like this moment of peace, right? Or if this is God's plan, it will all make sense. And that's kind of how we test in our brains, like what faith is supposed to look like. But no, That's not what it's supposed to be like. And that's not what it feels like most of the time, because most of the time it doesn't feel clear at all. I know from lots of experience, it does not feel clear. It actually, some of the greatest things I've done in my life have always been born out of that feeling of confusion and hesitancy and doubt, but moving forward anyway, because it feels really confusing sometimes. And it definitely, this is the one thing I know I feel, it feels uncomfortable. It feels like, God, you're wanting me to do this thing, but I really don't feel comfortable about it because this is out of the ordinary for me. And I don't really want to step outside of the box and do something that I feel like you're calling me to do, but yet I'm not sure. So therefore you get very, very uncomfortable, right? Because we like staying where we are. That's what we're wired to do. Our brain wants us to not wire new neural pathways. It wants us to just stay safe. And honestly, it all just feels really scary when we're trying to live out our faith sometimes. So what are we supposed to do? Well, there's what we're supposed to do, and then there's what we actually do, right? This is what I used to do, right? I used to wait and I used to overthink the thing till the cows came home and I would still not have any answers. Or I would say, God, just give me the sign. I need that special sign from somebody I see today, or some message I hear on TV, or something comes on the radio. I'm going to know it's from you, God. I'm going to feel it. Right. And we look for these things outside of like the Holy Spirit speaking to us. And so then we decide, well, we're just going to stall because I'm just going to hang out then until God gives me like the right direction that I'm supposed to take. Because we think once I feel sure, then I will move. Right? But that's not faith. That's control. That's controlling. And I know because I have spent a majority of my life, I spent a few decades being very type A, very controlling, and thinking naively that I had control of my life until I think God broke me to the point where he just said, look, we're going to take everything away. We're going to make you hit rock bottom. We are going to put you in a place where you have no other option than to rely on me. And not that I want all of you to get to that place. I hit rock bottom a couple different times in my life. But that will be the major wake-up call if, in fact, that does happen to you. For me, I think God knew maybe that's what I needed to really start redirecting my life into what he had for me. Maybe I wasn't getting the message with all the other little things he might have been trying to do along the way. And so he had to do it in a much bigger, grander fashion for me to get my attention. And that's really what we have to do, though, is let go and let God. And for us, that can be super, super uncomfortable. I remember a time where it felt like God was nudging me to do something. And I didn't fully understand it, but I felt it. And it was like, I'll give you the short version, but I had been hired my senior year of college, like 6 months before I graduated. I got this prestigious job at Anderson Consulting in the change management division in New York City. And it was like the job that you wanted to get graduating from college. And it was a high paying job. They gave you like a signing bonus. You're going to be traveling the world every week. It was all these wonderful things that everybody wanted. And so I thought that I should want that too. And I went through a 6-month interview process to actually get that job. My entire senior year, on top of another internship I did and going to school full time, was all spent and worked around trying to get this job. And I was trying to prove to myself, I think, that I could do it. And I was definitely capable of performing the job. They thought so. I knew I could do it, but there were certain elements of the job that were like things I definitely knew I didn't want to do, like flying around the country. I hated flying. I've never been a big fan of flying. And I was going to be on a plane at least 2 or 3 times a week. I would come home on the weekends and then they put me in some other corporation around the world and I would be consulting and doing their change management, telling what they needed to rework in their business. And Long story short, the summer after I graduated from college, I had always been a singer, songwriter, musician. I was a recording artist, and I always loved doing that. And the summer that I was waiting, they actually gave me a significant signing bonus to actually not go to work for that summer because they wanted to start me in the fall. And they said, well, we're going to pay you anyway just to stay home. So I was like, wow. But I never cashed the check. And instead, I had gotten a job as a singer in this country band. And I was doing these gigs every weekend. And I was actually really loving it. And then one night, they walked up to me and they gave me $40, the leader of the band. He said, I would like you to join our band. And this is what we can pay you tonight. But, will you stay with us? And so I said, well, sure, I can stay with you for the summer, but I'm going to be traveling come the fall. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do more than, what I'm doing now for the summer. But yeah, for the summer, that'd be awesome. And he said, yeah, and we can pay you every night. And to me, like $40, that was like the first time I had really gotten paid for singing. And so I thought it was like the biggest deal. When September was about to roll around, I had to make a decision. By then, the band was getting a little bit bigger. We were playing bigger venues, bigger fairs. And I knew that I was going to have to tell them that tonight was going to be my last gig and I could no longer be with the band. And I made the decision to send back my signing bonus to Anderson Consulting. And I decided that I was going to take another path. I had another opportunity to do more of a 9-to-5 job in marketing, which I had my degree in. And so I decided to take that. And I knew that I could get out of there usually by 5 or 6 o'clock. And then I'd be able to travel at night to wherever we were performing, I guess maybe 3 or 4 times a week. So I would still have the ability to do both, but I was going to be able to do what I loved. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I was young. I was single. I had the opportunity and I grabbed it. And of course, when I told my parents that's what I was doing, they were not too excited about it. They were supportive, but I could tell my dad was really super disappointed because he had felt very proud of the fact that his daughter had gotten this prestigious position. And I loved business too. And I had to make a choice. And I felt in my heart of hearts that God was definitely nudging me at that time to pursue my music career because he knows that I had been doing it since I was 3 years old. I didn't have a family yet and I could travel. So I chose that musical path. And I didn't fully understand it because in numbers, what I would be making, I mean, we're talking about $40 a night. And maybe if I was lucky, I worked my way up to $100 a night. Back then, that wasn't bad money. But at the same time, it was nowhere near what the salary was that the company was offering me, the other company. So I definitely made a choice. But I just kept wrestling with that decision. I decided I need confirmation, God. I wanted clarity and preferably the detailed 10-year plan. If I chose the path with Anderson Consulting or if I choose my musical career path, I was fully expecting that Jesus was going to come down, shine the light and show me the way. But instead, none of that really happened. It was just this quiet nudge. And if I was real still and listened to it, it made absolutely no sense what Jesus was speaking to me. But I knew that it was the right answer, even though the numbers didn't make sense. And I was taking, the lesser salary for sure, even with the 9-to-5 job I got, it was nowhere near what I would have made at this other prestigious consulting firm. But I knew that's what he wanted me to do. And I wrestled with it a long time. I regretted the decision that fall. I kept overthinking because I had to work, 100 times harder to do what I was doing with the marketing job and then plus the singing at night. It was a lot more work than what it would have been to just, get this wonderful corporate job. They took care of your flights. They took care of your meals, your hotels. It was like this luxurious way of living. But for me, I knew it wasn't the right thing. And I just kept thinking, well, what if I made a mistake, God? What if you gave me that wonderful, luxurious job and I was going to be able to change all these corporations and change their systems inside? And because I was good with operating systems and their management division. And what if I just messed everything up? What if I just messed up my life? So I just waited and I waited. And I overthought the whole thing to death, even before I made the actual decision to return my signing bonus. And then I kept overthinking it. Even when I made the decision, I was still in limbo. And until I just finally realized, like, I'm not lacking faith, I was just avoiding the uncertainty of the path I had chosen. I had chosen a path that was completely outside of the box from the norm. The so-called normal decision would have been take that prestigious position and you're on the path to success, But for me, that wasn't what success looked like at the time. I wanted to explore my creativity, also my marketing skills, and I thought I could combine both, working a little bit harder, yes, and not making as much money, but it was a fit for me. As a sidebar, also, there were a couple other people in my class that also were hired by the same consulting firm. And all of you know 9/11, right? Well, 9/11 happened. And at the time, I grew up outside of New York City in a small town. And a lot of the people that I grew up with, everyone pretty much worked in Manhattan. And that was the thing to do after you graduated from school. And it turned out a couple other people out of my graduating class that ended up taking the job, they were in the Trade Center the day the towers fell. And when I remember hearing that, I remember just that sinking, obviously terrible feeling that, I can only imagine what their families are going through. And it was also this silent relief and confirmation in a strange way for me that God was telling me, you listened, Lorianne, and I gave you the answer why. Not then, but years later. So by listening to the Holy Spirit, I actually saved my own life by listening to what he was telling me, even though my decision at that time did not make any sense. And I just want to share that with you because that was really one of those moments where I had such a big revelation. Sometimes we wait for the clarity and we want the answers and we want the why in the moment, right? But sometimes the answers don't come until many years later, many decades later sometimes. It can take a while. But we know if we trust what God is trying to tell us, that there is a reason. And the more we can align with that Holy Spirit and that voice that is speaking to us from God, the closer we're going to be to the path that God wants us to follow. Okay, so today, I just want to go through 5 points here on faith that I want you to remember. Okay, number 1, faith requires movement before clarity. This is the part that nobody likes, right? Just like I was telling you in my story, you don't get full clarity first. You just get the next step. Like, this is what he's telling me to do, and that's it. And that feels very uncomfortable and it's very scary, but that is how he is trying to teach us also obedience, to trust in him. And by doing that and not knowing where it's going to lead, that helps us lean on him more. We let go, we let God, and we learn how to trust. So that's what he's teaching us. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. It doesn't say it's not what we fully understand, and it's not what's guaranteed. It's what we don't see, right? And so faith really requires that movement before we're going to get any clarity. Like for me, for instance, like I was saying, it wasn't until years later that I really got that clarity. Number 2, waiting to feel ready is often disguised fear. Yeah, right. We don't want to hear that one. So when you're saying, I just need more time, or it's just a busy season right now, I'm just not ready yet, that's really not wisdom. That's your fear talking. And that's not what we want. Because if you keep waiting for the certainty and the confidence and that perfect so-called timing, you're going to stay stuck. I hate to tell you that, but that's where you're going to be. I remember I used to say, wow, when my kids were little, I'm like, well, just when they get into school, if you give me a couple more years, then I'm going to have like all this free time, right? When they go to school, it was this magical illusion that I was going to be having spa days and I was going to be able to work and I was going to be able to do my own thing and watch what I wanted to, when I wanted to on TV and build my businesses. And the reality was the time really didn't change. There were different seasons that bring you more stuff that you have to do once they get into school. Like, I forgot my water bottle, mom, or I forgot my lunchbox. And before you know it, you're running back and forth, or I don't feel well today, mom, I'm home. And then the other child doesn't feel well. And, before you know it, like you're kind of in this cycle of just like either running back and forth in your car, or you're taking care of sick kids, and then you're kind of like juggling more than you kind of were before, only now you got school on top of it. And then you could think, oh, well, just when they graduate from school, then I'm going to have this magical me time again. And, before you know it, like a couple decades have gone by and you kept thinking that the next season was going to be better. And the truth is, it's not that it's better in the next season. It's just that the responsibilities change and the dynamics change with your kids, or if they've left, your dynamics are going to change if you're an empty nest syndrome now and you have different priorities. But if we're not intentional with our time, then you're never going to feel ready. It's just always going to look like you're not ready or you don't have the time, but it's really based in fear. Number 3, God rarely will give the full plan. He gives that next step. And honestly, that's like the most frustrating one for me because I want like step 1 through 50, God. I like to plan it out. I like to be productive. I want the whole thing. But God just gives step 1 and says, that's it. Moving on. If you don't take a step, I'm not giving you step 2. Why? Because it builds the trust. Like I said before, it's not control, right? You're letting go and you're letting God. And that was super, super hard for me. Really, really hard. My beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, creative daughter, she is a tween now. And she is just kind of the perfect example that I have for this of she was very, very, have you ever read the book, The Strong-Willed Child by Dr. Dobson? Somebody recommended that I read that. She was young, like we're talking 3 years old. They said, you're definitely going to need to read this. And then, learn how to navigate raising her, because I had just never, like, I think I'm stubborn and I definitely have my moments when it comes to that. But, she definitely has me beat, in that department. And I could not understand the amount of independence that she wanted to assert with me and trying to do things her own way. And it was her way or the highway. And it was very different from the way I think I was, at least as a child, with my mother. And it was a different dynamic. But the one thing I learned is that I kind of had to let go of like trying to instill what I wanted to instill on her. It was like, no, you're going to do it my way. And when she would tell me that she wasn't going to do it, I was like, no, well, this is the way it is, as I'm the mom, I'm the parent, and this is how it's going to go. And it was more like a struggle instead of embracing her, which I found was the way to definitely get through to my daughter. And the one thing she needed was to feel deeply loved and secure. She wanted to know that I loved her no matter what. And so a lot of times when we were having these moments of her not wanting to do what I was telling her to, the first thing I would learn to do was go over and hug her and make her feel loved and secure first. How he teaches in the book, the connection should always come before the correction. And I was doing the opposite. I was trying to control it. I was like, no, well, it's my way. I'm the parent. I'm going to do this how I see fit. And she's supposed to follow me. And it was kind of like God speaking to me, this might work for other children and their parents, but for you, this is a unique difference. And you're going to have to learn how to navigate it. You've got to let go and try to do this a different way. And I learned that I had to have more one-on-one time with her and give her a lot more affirmation and encouragement. And the physical affection was a big thing, and listening to her without correcting her right off the bat. And then she would want to do what I was asking her to do because she had that first. But it was kind of like opposite thinking what I thought I should be doing. And the coolest part is that I was so worried as a mom thinking, oh my goodness, how is she ever going to follow anyone else's instructions? How is this going to pan out as she gets older, right? But the thing I learned too in that book was, wow, these are the kids that are going to change the world. And my daughter's one of them. I know that for a fact. And so is my son, but in a different way. She is very creative and she loves to sit hours and hours and she will just draw. And she's such an incredible artist. At this point, she must be a master because she spent thousands and thousands of hours doing it. But she thinks differently. She doesn't want to do things the way the norm is that I was trying to control and create in her life. She wants to be the visionary. She'll sit with the same drawing for days trying to get it right. She's like the persistent achiever, and she's an independent thinker who really wants to do it her own way. But I have to say, 99.9% of the time when she does it her own way and her creativity comes out, it's amazing. It's much better than the way I was telling her to do it. And those same traits that made everything so difficult when she was younger, for me, really, not for her, but it was difficult for me, for her not to do what I was telling her to. It just makes them such powerful adults. And so I reframe it now and thinking like, wow, this might be difficult now in this season when she was younger. But as she gets older, these are going to be the traits that allow her to go out there and just change the world. And she's going to be incredible. And it was me having to let go and learn a different way of relating to my daughter, to get on the same page, to allow her the space and the time and know she's loved in order to come around to doing what I wanted her to do. So I think, that is just so important when it comes to, like, I didn't know what the next step was, right? I didn't know what to do with the situation. I tried everything. But God won't give us that full plan, like I'm saying. He just gives us the little next step. And I started taking small steps to eventually get her to a place now where she's doing great. I know now, I've learned, God's walked me through how to relate to her and how to get through those moments. Number 4, faith grows through action, not the overthinking. You're just not going to think your way into faith. We can try. We can watch all the podcasts. We can watch all the shows. We can listen constantly to our pastor. We can hear what we're supposed to be doing about faith. But you have to step your way into it. There's just no getting around it. So every time you take a step or you follow through or you trust just a little bit more than you did before, your faith grows exponentially. And that's the key. We don't want to just be, listeners of what faith looks like. It's almost like you want to be grateful for those moments when God is calling you to a place where all you have to do right now is rely on Him because you've got no other choice. Sometimes those are the most difficult moments, and they're also the greatest moments that will transform your life, because that's where your faith is going to grow exponentially so fast, because you're put in a position where you just don't have any other choice. So you want to step into action and grow in faith with Him. Number 5, obedience will feel uncomfortable sometimes. And that's okay. That is okay. And that's where we get so tripped up, because we think if it's from God, it should feel really peaceful right away. And I'll just know, right? We'll get that overwhelming peace about something. I've heard that a lot. And that's true. Like once in a while, I think with things that have happened in my life, like I'll just know, or I'll just have overwhelming peace about something. But I'll be honest, most of the time, sometimes it just feels downright scary and fearful. And I'm uncertain and I'm like stretching myself and I don't want to. In 2 Corinthians 5:7, it says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." We walk, right? That's the key. We walk. We don't wait. We walk. And even though it might feel scary, we're walking in obedience with God. And if we talk about Peter for a second, in Matthew 14, Jesus calls him out onto the water. Remember? And Peter actually gets out of the boat. Now think about that. Like he didn't have proof that it was going to work. He didn't feel 100% confident about anything. And he didn't know how it was going to turn out, right? I mean, I can't imagine like stepping out of the boat. He didn't know how this was going to end and how it was going to go. He just stepped out. And yes, he started to sink, right? But here's what's important. He still walked on the water, even if it wasn't perfect. And even if he was experiencing extreme fear, he still showed up. He was called out of the boat, and he came out of that boat in obedience. But faith wasn't him standing safely in that boat. Sometimes we wish that's what faith would look like, but it doesn't. Faith was stepping out when something looked impossible. And even when it didn't feel certain. That is the kind of faith that I think we need, especially in this day and age right now. So if you have been sitting there thinking, I just need more clarity, Lorianne, I don't feel ready yet. What if, you already have the next step and you're just waiting to feel sure before you take it? I'm telling you, you just don't need more certainty. You need to move. You have to move. Moving is the key. It's the key for our faith. It's the key for our health. It's the key for so much. I want you to stop overthinking and start rebuilding your confidence by taking the action and taking aligned action with faith. And I would love for you to join us over in the Midlife Comeback Club. That's my annual group coaching mentorship for a whole year. And you get my free 90-day transformational program inside there. Like I mentioned, you also get weekly live group Q&A calls with me, your certified Christian life coach, every single week where we meet and talk about what's on your heart. And you're going to be surrounded by these amazing women in the group that are just phenomenal. They all have walked a similar path to yours. And we all come together in this safe space where we just can talk about things and work through stuff and launch our comeback. That is so important. And that's my passion. I love seeing these women's lives be transformed. And I definitely want the same thing for you. You can also jump on my email list. You're going to get weekly encouragement. You'll get the newest podcast episodes that I have coming out. You'll get first dibs on special pricing that I have for any new offers coming out. And it's faith-based strategies that I give you every single week to help you work through your week. But that is LoriAnnFeely.com/insider. LORIANN, F as in Frank, EELEY.com/insider. So definitely go check that out and jump on my email list. I'd love to have you on there. And I've also opened up our free Facebook group just last week. And it's called Healing After Divorce for Midlife Christian Women. I'll put the link down in the show notes so you can definitely jump over there too. I give faith-based tips in the group and we all get together and get to know each other, and it's just amazing. So definitely check out all those things. And girl, I want to leave you with this today. All right. Faith isn't about feeling certain like we've learned, right? It's about showing up even when you're not certain. And that next step, it really matters more than you think. That next step that you take could completely change your life for the better. So thank you so much for meeting me here every week. I drop new episodes on Mondays and Thursdays, so definitely come back and listen. And if I don't see you over in the Midlife Comeback Club group coaching membership before, I will definitely see you back here on the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Hey girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a woman who might really need it right now? Also, please leave me a quick review over on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps this show reach more women who are ready for their divine comeback. And until next time, keep choosing faith over fear, and I will meet you back here next week for another episode.